between the long toss and the flat ground. And, if I was inconsistent with my breaking ball, I might get to a point in my focus that day, once I was on flat ground and was good and loose, that I would work on my curveball and on my grip as far as it coming out of my hand with tight spin.
So flat ground for you, would it still be 60 feet or would it be shorter than that?
It'd be shorter than that.
And then picked up another changeup, which was a four-seam changeup, which felt horrible at the time to me. And then got to the minor leagues, and the seams were smaller. Always did my curveball like this, where I had no space in between my hand, and it wasn't good. It wasn't sharp. And then saw somebody throw a spike curveball, and so I tried it, and I got one guy in one of the games in the AA when I was in Erie, Pennsylvania, to kind of buckle. And ever since then, I kept throwing it. And then if we want to get into talking curveballs, I know a lot of people think curveballs hurt your arm, but they don't. If you throw it right, they will not hurt your arm. Throw it like a football. The spin will take care of itself. So.
Well, throw it like a football is something we harp on a lot, but for lots of reasons. But no, that's interesting. Look, I think regardless of whether certain pitches are safe, like your point is, you can focus on developing just a couple of pitches. There's always this like sense at the younger levels of athletics that you're going to get left behind, but it's not it's a long game. It's not a sprint. It's a long game.
Now the grip belongs to the athlete, belongs to the pitcher, but the break belongs to the wrist and forearm. So Bert Blyleven, traditional four-seam fastball grip. This was his fastball. This was his curveball. This was his changeup. Wrist and forearm determine the break. The athlete gets the grip to fit what feels good to you. That's why there's a million grips, because every ball is different in everybody's hand. And that's the traditional four-seam fastball. The traditional breaking ball is upside down horseshoe, middle finger, pointer finger, thumb on a seam right underneath. That's what it looks like. The curveball you have to bury and squeeze to firm the wrist up. Then all you have to do is think karate chop. As hard as you can karate chop a ball, and it will take care of itself. Now, when people start moving the ball around to get a better feel, that's unique to you. The grip belongs to who? What does the wrist and forearm belong to? Curveball.
I had an actual question about the curveball, actually, because
that's pretty close to the.
When I was 12, I really put it in there, and to me, that was how I threw it. But as I've gotten older, the gap in here creates more velocity. But I'm wondering, when you say you firm up the wrist, does it come from in here, or does it come from actually burying it in that?
When you bury it and squeeze it, your wrist can't get floppy.
Right, but what I would say is burying it would be getting it in that.
Perfect. If you move it out on your fingertips, you can't create the same strength that you need in your wrist.
Okay, so the deeper you can go in here.
Now, Nolan buried all his pitches, but that isn't necessary for me, what I've seen.
But I've found
you do have to bury your breaking ball, your curveball.
Yeah. I've played around with a little space.
Yeah. The chances of hanging that pitch are greater
than the one where you bury it.
If you bury it, you should never squirt the curveball.
Right.
It's gonna bounce.
Yeah. I've talked to people about it, and they feel like the ones that I've talked to that get it, they're like, I just hold on to it, and the arm speed takes the ball out of the.
There's no flick.
Flick. It's literally like karate chop, and as you're throwing, it just comes out.
That would be it. All right.
So Ryan, can you just take us through kind of what pitches you throw, what your arsenal is these days?
Yeah, so four-seam fastball, and then it's like a cutter slider. I mean, they call it a cutter, but I think it kind of profiles more of a slider. I don't really call it either one. I just kind of grip it and rip it, just let the grip do its thing, and then also throw a spiked curveball, kind of like so, and then it's kind of 12-6, I guess, and then I'll mix in a changeup too every now and then. I kind of keep that in my back pocket in case one day they call me and they want me to start. So I try to hold on to that one. if I changed any grip, it probably would be my slider. I feel like I can get more depth on it sometimes, especially in a 2-strike count, if I want it. And like early on, I'm just trying to get in the zone with it, so I want it to be a little smaller and tighter, So for me, it's like early on, I might be a little more on the edge, and then later I might be like more up the seam to kind of pull on it more, to get that more depth. But yeah, I mean, if you give up a hit on any of your pitches, I think you got to kind of keep that same mindset to throw it again. These guys are good hitters too. You can't give them too much credit, but I would say my slider, I actually switched it mid-game once, and this was in 2019. I just wasn't feeling good with my grip, and in the bullpen about to go into the game. I was actually in AAA at this time, and I switched it to my current grip now, and it just felt good, So I just started ripping it and had good results, and kind of kept it ever since. But I would say most of the pressure for me is on that middle finger, because that's kind of the last one on the ball. So it's kind of feeling it right there on the edge, and really trying to feel that seam come off of there last. I feel like the pointer finger on all my spin, all my off speed is kind of just like a placeholder. I don't really feel much pressure on it, especially on my spiked curveball. It's just kind of sitting on the seam right here. But yeah, I would definitely say that, pressure on that middle finger is probably the biggest key.
So just a real quick follow-up question to that. So when you're working on your craft and you find that it's like, okay, I've got this thing locked in, I've got this slider and it's at the rotation I want, it's, 2,500, 3,000 RPM, and it's at the spot I want it to, do you stay with that, or do you go 3 months from now, do you go, you know what, I'm going to start playing with this and see if I can make it better? And then is there a concern that if you do that, then you can't find what you had before?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a concern for that. I think your biggest teller will be using whatever pitch you have and using it in the game. If you're having success with that, the hitters are going to tell you what you need to work on. If you're throwing it and getting outs, there's no need to change it. But if you're throwing it and, every third or fourth one's a double or a homer, then you probably got to look in the mirror, get on the mound and try to work on it a little more.
We all go through ruts on the mound. We all go through different things at times where we just don't feel like ourselves out there. I have a simple answer, and then I have kind of a funny answer, but it also is great. I think the funny answer first is a dig me tape. Dig me tape. You just go and watch yourself like on video or whatever you have available and see yourself make these great pitches that you have before. Whatever you have in the first half, you're the exact same guy, right? You're just having a rough stretch. So if you see yourself making those pitches that you did in the first half, maybe intrinsically, maybe subconsciously, you'll kind of remember how you did it. The second thing is to kind of slow everything down a little bit. I think that's like, for example, sometimes with me, the spin on my breaking ball isn't the way I want it. And instead of just ripping them over and over again on the mound until I find the right feel, I kind of work backwards and throw it as slow as I can to feel that sensation. And then I slowly start speeding up from there until I get to kind of game-like atmosphere. So I think that really helps me, especially with the breaking balls, because that's kind of, I throw those a lot. It's really important to me. So if something doesn't feel right with that, I'll just continue to throw it, because the slower you throw it, the more you can throw it without taxing your arms. So, I'll go throw 100 curveballs just easy against a wall, or I'll throw 50 sliders easy against the wall. And then like, okay, I think that's the feel. Then I'll go play catch, and same thing, I'll kind of ease into it. And so by the end, I'm starting to throw them harder and harder, but just repetition, man. I think that's it. Just repetition until you find it. That's kind of what I do. We talk on the phone, and he's just great. But just the one Sandy story is, everybody talks about how big his hands are, and I was like, Sandy, will you show me your curveball grip? And just Sandy Koufax, I'd like to see it. And he grips a baseball, and his middle finger and his thumb are basically like touching around the ball. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't help me. I can't even come close to doing that. But it makes a lot of sense. So thanks. And it was just impressive, man. Like the way he can hold a baseball, it makes it look like a ping pong ball in his hands. So he was gifted with some just enormous monos.